How to build a BMX bike. Sponsored by the instructional DVD Ground Rules. Bike's going to straighten out and the handlebars are going to make a T with it. That's halfway through. Let the frame continue to swing around. Put your left foot on the top tube. More info about Ground Rules at mattbmx.com.
Alright, so we got the handlebars and the seat on the bike, and I was talking about having that foundation to work on. And this is what I'm talking about right here. Now we can put the cranks in and not have to worry about the bike, moving around when we hit stuff. So first thing, we're going to have to put the bearings into the frame, and like I'm saying, I always put some grease in the frame. So I'm just going to put some right in here, just like that, kind of rub it around. And this way that it'll be easier for the bearings to slide in there. Won't have any metal on metal contact. Do it on both sides. Alright, so now we're going to put in the bearings. And I used to have to take my bike to a bike shop to do this. And they would use a bearing press to squeeze them in. Well, I made my own bearing press. This is real easy to do. You just need an axle, 2 washers, and 2 axle nuts right here. And we're going to use this to basically just put our bearings in. So we'll take one bearing, slide it right onto this homemade press, put our crank bearing spacer through there. Now we'll slide it through the frame, just like that, put the bearings in on the other side, attach our washer to this side, and now we just need to tighten this bolt. And if we do it correctly, the bearings should just pop in, and you might need to push them in a little bit at first, but this is great. It'll save you a lot of money and a lot of time too. Now this is so much better than hammering your bearings in, because a lot of times when you hammer the bearings it just totally destroys them. So we're going to use 2 wrenches. I have a vice grip here, which I don't like to use a vice grip a whole lot on a bike, but it's really good in this situation because you can just clamp it on one end. And then I'm just going to tighten the bearings in just like this. And you might have to move the bearing press around just to make sure the bearings go in evenly, but it should work out pretty well for you. And don't worry if one side goes in first, that's fine. Just make sure that they're both in there pretty snug. And when you can't tighten anymore, you are done. Alright, so we got the bearings into the frame. Now we want to put the cranks and spindle in the frame. First, let's attach our sprocket to the crank arm. So we're just going to tie this bolt in right through here. And we don't need to get this super tight for right now. I actually like to keep it a little bit loose because it'll just be easier to get the crank arm onto the sprocket. So just get it, kind of snug, but you don't have to tighten it all the way down. See, you still want it to move like that. Now with these cranks, these are a little bit different than your normal crank. This is actually going to slide through just like that, and we can worry about getting it all the way on later. Now you want to have the right crank spacer. So I have this one crank spacer right here I'm going to put on this side, and I might put a couple on the other side. So I'll just slide it through right like this. And now you can take a hammer if you like, and just kind of hammer it through just a little bit. Just like that. Now, for this side. This is where you want to make sure you have the right amount of spacers as well. So I have this one crank spacer right here, and I also have another one that I'm going to put on because I think I like my feet a little bit wider out. And then I'm just going to take this crank arm. Now you want to make sure that you have these lined up evenly. So just kind of give it a look. You'll know if they're off. Okay, so I got my crank arm on, and you can just hit it on, or you can just give it a little tap like this, just to get it on a little bit more. And now we're going to take our bolt, slide it in through here, and these cranks are so cool. You just tighten one bolt, and it tightens the whole thing together. No pinch bolts or anything. So I can just do this, and this is going to just compress everything right down nice and tight. Now I like to tighten my cranks down almost as much as I can because I don't like my cranks spinning around when I'm doing tricks. The only thing you have left to do is just tighten this this bolt down here on the sprocket and crank installation 1, 2, 3 right there. Now when we were installing the cranks, we were talking about putting these spacers on this side and one on this side, And the reason we did that, because we want enough space between the crank arm and the frame right here. And even the best crank arms will sometimes flex a little bit, and you don't want those digging into your frame. So make sure you got enough spacers right in here. Just check on both sides, and you can just take the arms off, put in more spacers, just trial and error. That's it. All right, it's time to install the pedals. And if you look at your pedal, each one should have a left and a right. The left is the non-sprocket side, and your bike might be upside down, so don't get confused. I want to take some grease again with my good old spoke here. Just put a little bit inside where the pedal is going to make contact with the crank arm. And if you take your pedals off a lot, if you're, sometimes I fly with my bike a lot and I have to take the pedals off. This will save me a lot of pedals getting stripped out. And I'm just going to take, these actually have an Allen wrench in this end of the pedal. It makes it a lot easier to install. So I'm just going to kind of turn it on just like this, get it pretty close, and then to get it fully tight, I don't really like the Allen wrench so much for that, so I'm going to use just a good old classic wrench right here and just kind of torque on this thing to get it as tight as I can. And then you just basically do the same thing for the other side.